of Supervisors meeting, recorded September 4th, 2024.
I'm going to call this meeting of the Portage County Board Committee of the Whole to order. Roll call if you would, clerk.
We have 21 supervisors present. Supervisor Fritz is remote, and Supervisor Morrow and Supervisor Barry Jakowski are excused, and Supervisor Sislevich is absent.
Pledge.
I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
for all.
Public notice. Members of the public who wish to address the county board on specific agenda items must register their request at this time, with such comments subject to the public comment ordinance and the reasonable control of the county board chair as set forth in Robert's Rules of Order. The above public notice is included on the agenda pursuant to Portage County Code of Ordinances, Section 3.1.48. However, because this meeting is a committee of the whole and has no action agenda items, public comment is suspended only for this meeting as directed by the Portage County Chair. For discussion only, agenda item 1, review of guiding principles from the August 21st, 2024 County Board Committee of the Whole meeting for ranking criteria and development of prioritized ranking criteria, weighted criteria. So a couple notes on what we're gonna go over tonight. All of you should have a copy of the Capital Improvement Plan Handbook in front of you. We're going to talk a little bit about the handbook itself. We're going to talk a little bit about the process of moving a project through using the handbook. We're also going to look at the guiding principles that we delineated last time. And we're going to look at the 12 existing criteria that are listed in the handbook. And we're going to rank the top 5. And then, if possible, we're also going to try and rank the bottom 2. Try and take a look at which 2 really aren't quite as important as the others, if we can. Also, keep in mind that not all projects are buildings. We've been talking about this in the context of buildings, but there's lots of other kinds of projects. We could look at highway projects, road projects, bridges. We could look at if we ever have to build a new landfill or a transfer station. So when you're looking at the criteria, don't think specifically about buildings. Apply those criteria to all projects that might come up. I've taken a few things from some slides by Director Josie that I want to quickly go over that might help explain why we're going through the process or where we're headed with this. So these are excerpts from her August 6th presentation on the capital improvement plan. So why do we have a capital improvement plan? To maintain capital assets, to provide justification and accountability for capital expenditures, to improve and achieve operational efficiencies, to consider long-range financing strategies and evaluate affordability. And so how do we do that? Or what does the plan actually do for us? Well, it helps us come up with effective allocation of resources based on those priorities we're going to be looking at tonight. It gives us continuity in financial decisions by linking long-term planning and budgeting together. It helps just with general coordination across the county. It also raises public awareness about what the projects are and what future need is. I don't know how it is for other supervisors, but certainly in my district, the public has a pretty poor understanding of what projects are in front of the county and where we're at in terms of budget constraints. So again, having some consistency and having a capital improvement plan in place with those adopted projects, I think it's a place for the public to go and look at that information. It also helps with tax rate stability and bond rating maintenance, basically effective management and financial solvency. I'm going to turn it over to Carl Green again. We're going to go through a similar exercise as we did last time, but again, tonight we're looking at those 12 criteria in the Capital Improvement Plan Handbook.
All right, thank you, Mr. Chair. So, hello again, Carl Green with the UW Extension Local Government Education Program. So I'm going to pass out first what you guys did last month, or last time I was here. Feels like a month ago, but I don't think it was. And that was, if you recall, we were putting together the guiding principles for why you guys should have the rankings and what those rankings should be. Guys need three? Got one. Two. Okay, good. And four down here.
Gotta use the mic.
Leave it on. Oh, got it. Yeah, Carl, we'll need you to use the mic if you would. And if I could get a copy? Thank you.
Okay, this is on, it looks like. Okay, so if you remember, we were looking at the capital improvement plan, and we have ranking criteria in your capital improvement plan. But having ranking criteria and putting ranks to that criteria is two different things, and let me explain. You've got 12 different items that you can use to rank a project. So each of these represents about an 8%, 8.3% weight. You add 12 times 8.3%, you should get around 100. I guess it would be 8. But not everything might qualify for something. And just because it doesn't qualify, it's not maybe a state mandated issue. Does that mean then it should drop in rank? And that's what I think sometimes can give us a little bit of a misunderstanding is okay, we have ranking criteria, so why do we need to go through this exercise? The purpose is to give weights to this ranking so that one ranking might be the most important ranking and it blows every other ranking out of the water, and that's our most important weight that we put towards it. But yet there's other things that we also want to consider, and so you can boost how well a project does based on those other additional rankings. But we have to give that criteria, that scoring, that weight to these items. So these items have been in the capital improvement handbooks. I think the handbook was developed in 2020, around there, and it was to act as a guide to help with that scoring. But again, it seems like it gets then to a point where it gets to the county board and something sort of gets caught in the gears and we just don't quite get it across that finish line. And so the purpose of what I want to try to do tonight is to help you guys on your ranking determine weights for this. And to do that, what we did last time is sort of a build-up to it, is we said what is important, what really guides your decision on using capital, using any sort of debt for projects. And the list is what I just handed out. And we put a list of stuff together. If you remember, we had groups, I think we broke everybody in pairs, and then we put the pairs in pairs. So we had groups of 4, and we asked you to winnow it down to 3 of your best answers. And then we took those, we put them on the board, we kind of combined ones that were the same, and we asked you to then rank and put weight to those. And so you did that, and what we came up with was this list of, I believe there are 10, and you can see that the way that you put merit to them is different. The first one is developing a project for the need and not the price. And it sounded like there was a history potentially in Portage County where, we were trying to do stuff on the cheap, and therefore we now are saddled with that. And that's not a situation we want to get into again. And so the purpose of, I believe, your ranking of this as being one of the guiding principles is that we don't want to necessarily just focus on cost. We want to focus on the project and the need of the project and what it's trying to do. Very similarly, we've got safety for public, for the staff, and accessibility for public and staff. Those two ranked very highly. You guys put a lot of weight towards those. You can see that we have quite a few that all scored above 10. And then we sort of have a dropping off in the last 4. Balancing the financial and environmental sustainability, meeting a need that solves a problem, learning from other systems with similar projects. I believe that was try to look at other projects and see what they've done, and if they have a similar type of a system or a building, can we model ours after theirs? And then some sort of a responsiveness to the public opinion and being transparent. And what's interesting is that that kind of fell towards the bottom. Now, this is just your guiding principles, and what I'm saying is these are the things that should give you guidance for what we do tonight. However you guys rank these are your rankings. This is your list, this is your list, and however you vote tonight is based on your opinions. I'm simply here to help facilitate that so that you guys can get through the process, one, that the process can be, I think, fair and that it is done in a way that has merit. But 2, that you feel like your opinion has been voiced, it has been heard, and that what we come out with tonight is something that you feel you can support as a county board member. Any questions about sort of that difference between what the guiding principles that we did last time and what these ranking criteria are this time? Okay, all right. So I wanted to just review these ranking criteria again for you guys and kind of illustrate, I think, the situation where we're at with how it sits currently. So you have 12 ranking criteria. You want to make sure that whatever is using debt fits into the capital strategic plan. It's got to be part of the strategic plan. If it's not, it feels like probably you're pushing something that hasn't been thought through. I'm interpreting here when I say that. The ability to improve public safety. Obviously, public health, welfare, and safety are the 3 things that we do in local government. We want to protect public safety as one of our ranking criteria. Yes, ma'am.
Can I ask a question?
Sure.
Back to the first one on the strategic plan. On the strategic plan, the last plan was actually developed in 2017, and it went through 2021. Is it still as relevant when it hasn't been re-looked at since then?
Yeah, I mean, I would say, anytime you have age with the plan, the longer that plan has aged, the less relevance it potentially has. We've also had significant shifts in both economic and, I think, governmental services. COVID was a major disruptor to both economic and the way that the government does the work that it does. I think we've whipsawed back quite a bit, but there's still things that we're learning, I think, post-COVID. I would say it's a good point. Your strategic plan was, I think, put forth in 2017, and it was a 4-year plan, so it went through 2021. So I guess what I would ask is keep in mind these are until you change these are your ranking criteria. So as you're waiting, whether it fits in the county strategic plan, maybe the age of the county strategic plan is part of that. That being said, There will be other strategic plans hopefully being written for the Portage County. It'll be updated. And does that seem like it's a good idea to keep the strategic plan and the sort of long-term vision of the county in place when you're putting together your capital improvement plan? So the relevance of today's strategic plan, you could argue, I think, that it's getting older, and some people might say, I'm not going to put as much weight to that idea because of that. The other thought, though, is that these criteria are going to be around for a while, hopefully. Your strategic plan also will be, it'll be updated. And so does it make good policy sense to stick with the strategic plan with that sort of visioning idea? Very long-winded question, or answer, sorry. Any other questions? So we had ability to improve public safety, the ability to improve access to and the delivery of services, the ability to increase revenues. I think that kind of speaks for itself. The impact on the operating budget. So the examples that were given and that are given on page 6 in your capital improvement planning program handbook to reduce operating costs. That you might have multiple departments that have the ability to use the capital item, so it's getting multiple types of use. The requesting department has that capacity to take on a project for which the department oversees that budget. Another ranking criteria was that if it's a multi-year project, that should give some weight to it. If you've funded it in the past, it seems like you wouldn't want to just let that third year or final year go because you're not completing that project. The percentage of the county population served by the project. Sometimes this can be a little tricky, but I think it's a good idea. You want to see what is the general population's benefit from this. Are they getting a benefit? Are they getting some sort of improvement and some sort of quality of life change because of whatever this capital item is that the county is investing in? Public support of the project. Now, based on the guiding principles developed last time, it would suggest that the ranking of public support of a project maybe isn't as high. I'm not saying that's how you should rank that. I'm just saying somebody that thought that responsive to the public opinion is not something that's necessarily a guiding principle wouldn't necessarily then rank public support of a project very high. The ability to improve citizens' quality of life, that can possibly blend in with the percentage of the county population served by the project. You could also argue population served is the people that are directly impacted. The ability to improve citizens' quality of life is maybe a more indirect or less of a direct impact. The ability to increase the county's economic development. So something that's creating some sort of return, that's creating value and creating investment. This might be one of those ranking criteria that goes towards some sort of a project that's part of a development that Portage County might be doing in the future. I know La Crosse County did a reorg of campus, basically tore down an old building and basically added about $60 million in value while making a new campus. That would be one of those examples of a project that adds economic development. Mandated due to federal, state, or local law. So you think about, okay, if we don't do this, then we're going to get some sort of either a fine or some sort of penalty that we have to pay, or there's some mandate process that we now have to go through. That's going to create a little bit of hecticness for the county. That might be a reason why you want to do something. That also might be a terrible reason to do something, just because somebody else is making us do it. I'm trying to argue the other side. That just because the federal or state government says we have to do it, do we have our ability to make our own decisions, or are we just going to do what the federal or state tells us to? It's, again, these are your ranking criteria. So we're going to, yes, ma'am.
So sorry, there are actually 12 criteria on the list and 11 listed here, so.
Oh, I did a mistake then.
So the
Who's the first that can find the one missing?
fourth one, ability to stop deterioration of assets, infrastructure assets, and/or information assets.
I'm going to put it over here. Can you read that again?
Sorry. Ability to stop deterioration of assets, i.e. infrastructure, assets and/or information assets.
Thank you. I promise that was not an intentional slip. I think it is up on here, but not on there. So, okay, thank you very much for catching that. So what I'm going to ask you to do is I'm going to give you, we're going to do this dot exercise again. And I'm going to give you guys 5 dots, and I want you to pick the items of the ranking criteria that you think are the most important, the top 5, the most important. And then we're going to step back, and I'm going to give you 2 more dots. And you're going to put the ones that, while they're important, because all of these are important, are sort of at the bottom of your list, the 11 and number 12. Yes, sir.
Just to go over the public support of the project, it was ranked low before, but actually, all 25 of us, we all represent 2,800 people on the average. So we count that public support, I think, can be adjusted to, say, public support via our representation of our districts. We have everybody has their own gauge of what their district supports, so we're kind of the representatives. It's not where you put out a referendum for everything. I think what we do here as a body of 25 representing 70,000 people is really important. I think you got to have that. If none of us thought it was a good idea, it probably was not going to pass anywhere. So I think that's almost, I know it was ranked kind of low, but I think it should be a little higher, because I don't think anything gets off the ground unless you get a consensus of 18 or more of the supervisors. So just tossing it out to clarify that a little bit.
So 2 things, you'll have 5 votes, so you can vote for that if you wish. And that's certainly up to each individual how they would want to vote, whether they agree with that point of view or not. The other correction or suggestion I would make is that it's not 2,800 that you represent, it's the full 70,000 you represent.
Right.
You represent the entire county. You're elected by the,
But we only have our hands on our district, really.
true, but you're acting on behalf of the entire county population and what's in the benefit of the entire county population. I thought I saw a hand, but I guess not. Okay, yes, sir.
I have a question for our corporation counsel. I have a huge concern with how tonight's meeting was posted as discussion only. And we are talking about taking actions here. It was said that we are going to determine weights. That's an action. It was said, however you vote tonight, that's an action. What we come out of here with tonight, that's an action. Some may say one is better than the other. That's an action. Voting with dots, that's an action. We'll have votes to vote with a second set of dots. That's an action that this county board is taking. It was even said from last meeting that our guiding principles were developed. That's an action. That meeting was posted wrong. We are essentially taking action tonight. We are treading on a very thin line here of whether this meeting is posted correctly.
I'd have to look at this further, as I've not been involved in this entire process, but I did have a discussion about this with regards to that. And I don't think we're actually taking action on any specific item at this point. This is still conversation. How this ends up resulting or impacting the agenda of the county board is vastly different than having a conversation on how to figure out how to go forward on various things. We're not proposing to push it forward to another committee or anything like that. Right now, we're just having the discussion with regards to how to move things forward within the committee. or within the county board. I can look at it further if there are concerns that come up, but I mean, off the top of my head, that's where I think it is discussion only.
Thank you.
If I may, I don't, in terms of a mandated project, that's nothing, oh, so sorry. Looking at the criteria of mandated project, we really have no influence on that, so that's almost a given. So, I mean, I'd be putting a dot on that for if everyone, well, I can't speak for everyone. But I guess what I'm asking is maybe that's a given, and that doesn't become one of the 5 that we dot as our priority, because it's a given. You have to recognize that. So to weight it or is kind of a moot process, really.
I think depending on what the mandate is, and if there's a fine or a fee or a process that it goes through, I mean, sometimes, I'm just pulling out of the air, but like if it's a revaluation process for a municipality, there's a requirement that they are within 90% every 5 years, or within a 4-year period. If they don't do that, they get a letter that basically delays that for a year. So sometimes there's stuff that, yes, it's a requirement, but there's a process that takes place that is a delay to try to encourage the organization to act. That's very different than a substantial fine or a penalty. So I think depending on what that mandate is, if it was me voting, could influence. One mandate might be very different than another mandate. I think that's my thought. But again, these are yours. And so if, I mean, I can look around and you guys can tell me what you think if this is one that we all feel like should be removed. Otherwise, I think if you think it is a definite that you have to follow that, I would say you've still got 4 others that you can use to make sure you have other preferences in there.
Goes without saying that we should each select
Use your mic.
5 different categories and put our dot on 5 different categories. Otherwise we'd skew the objectivity of the whole process.
I'm not sure I understand, excuse me.
Pick 5 different categories to put the dot on, not double up on any.
Correct, I'm sorry, yes.
Objectivity of the whole process.
Yes, only put 1 dot per vote or per option so that you're not doubling up or tripling up on thank you very much, on a option. And I'm going to use the honor system for that. I'll stand by there, but. Any other questions before we get started? Everybody pretty clear with where we're going? Okay. Everybody gets 5? Then feel free to go on up.
I have a plan before I went up there. There we go.
Oh, so you've got extra.
Yeah, so
I'm not going to buy legal.
is there a way?
That's what it takes. Section 2.
So those supervisors who are online, and we'd like you to complete the exercise also. So if you could message Lee and highlight or put an X or an asterisk next to your 5 choices on this list of 12.
And I'm gonna ask you to put 2 red dots on the ones that you feel are the least important to you.
One red dot.
We're finishing up. Everybody should use their mics at your desk. Some parts of the room aren't as easy to hear in as other parts of the room. So if you would, thank you.
We've got one vote out, I believe.
Yep, Supervisor Fritz.
Okay,
Oh, we're still waiting on Sislavich.
that we're waiting. So this is yet to be finalized, but you get a pretty good understanding of where we're at. Maria went through and voted for Supervisor Fritz. And so we now have decent understanding of how these rank out. And so I'm gonna start putting them down on the list, based on their order. And then we're gonna start looking at that and come up with some sort of a, weight. So if you give me just a few minutes as I retranspile this.
orders weighted by the negative numbers too?
We haven't done any weighting yet.
No, oh, you're just listing them.
Just listing them.
These aren't to order.
by the
Okay.
highest that they rank.
Okay.
But then I know she's saying like mandated by blank law, that's 8 minus 8, which.
I think that's the next step.
Is that a 0 or a 1?
And you got a 6. Sorry, is that a 6 or a,
That's a 6.
which one?
Oh, 6.
This thing is crazy.
That's a 6.
Crazy.
Who wrote that?
Okay, so then we got public support and the county's economic development, and that's it.
Yes.
I haven't seen it. I don't know.
Because we have 4 or 5
We
regular.
sent him a message.
Is he?
Yeah.
There's a
No, like Steve Fritz had to have the clerk show him how to message back.
As there is Sislevich online, would you like to weigh in?
Yeah, I'm having technical difficulties here. I'm on my phone because my laptop doesn't work. So I'm trying to do
Sure.
this. I have my rankings here if you want it.
Yeah, that would be great. Thank you.
For the first round, I had 1, 4, 5, 6, and 10.
Can you give the category, please?
1, 4, 6, 5, and 10. So it'd be
I can-
1.
We can get it off the list.
And then his,
The red dots were 2 and 3.
2
Thank you.
You're welcome.
improve public safety.
Doesn't make sense. Is that a question?
It's kind of interesting. 16 votes for the ability to improve access to and delivery of services. 14 votes and 1 against for fixing the strategic plan. 14 votes. I'm so sorry. Okay. 14 votes and 1 against for the ability to improve public safety. 12 votes and 0 against for the ability to stop the deterioration of assets. 10 votes for and 0 against the ability to improve citizens' quality of life. 10 votes for and 0 against the impact on the operating budget. Now we start starting to feel the ones that had a little bit more negative towards them. 8 votes positive mandated by federal, state, or local law, and 8 against that. 7 that were for previously funded or multi-year projects, and 6 went against that. 6 that were the percent of the county population served. 3 went against that. 3 for public support of the project. 3 voted against that. 4 for the ability to increase the county's economic development. 5 voted against that. And the ability to increase revenues, 1 vote for it, 12 votes against it.
You go to the restroom.
I won't do that. So you can see that what we've got is a kind of a distribution for the top 6, I would say, which would go down to the impact on the operating budget. Those 6 have only 1 vote against as its least favorite. The bottom 6 have multiple votes against them. Again, this is your ranking system. So what I would say is that if we look at every single one equally, each is worth about 8.3 points. Multiply that by 12 and you get 100 points. I'm getting the feeling that these aren't equal. Would you guys agree to that? I'm getting the feeling that the top 6 have a different weight, that should have a different weight associated with them than the bottom 6. Does anybody disagree with that? Okay. So if we've got 6 out of 12 that are ranking relatively high by a majority of the board or a vocal minority, I guess if you had 10, is that enough to differentiate those from the bottom? And I'm not saying we're eliminating those the ones that scored an 8 or below. I'm just saying we might weight them a different weight.
Now, are we going to live and die by this ranking thing when it comes when it's applied to an actual projects of the county?
That's a question for you guys. This is your ranking. Are you going to live and die by this?
Because you're establishing a ranking or a course that the ship of state should go to this way or that way. But I only got 3 people in the audience there. I'm thinking we're treading on just slowing this down until the next meeting and then say that we have a discussion of the ranking system and then the actual public can chime in on what they think is because to exclude them at this point, I'm uncomfortable with it, to tell you the truth. Sorry.
I would remind you that you're elected as the visionary. Your position as a county board member is to be that visionary for the county board.
But it should be clear to the public.
It should be clear and transparent to the public.
It's not.
It's open to the public, and there's The public is available to participate by watching what the
We're saying
proceedings are.
We're gonna have a nice little discussion, and we're not having a nice little discussion. We're having action. Every time we put a dot up there, that's a vote. That's an action. And we're going to the next step here of trying to rank things. That's an action. As Mr. Supervisor Jakowski said, I just wish it was open. It was said in the thing that we'll have a discussion, possible action, whatever it is, and that covers it. Right now, we're saying, oh, we're just having a little seminar here. It has no effect on anything in the county. That's basically what the people, my people, probably would look at if they looked up the meeting. Oh, no need to go that. They're not going to do anything crazy. But we are doing stuff crazy. We're setting the course of where you want to go.
Let me ask you something, Supervisor Splinter. This has been your policy since 2020. What is crazy about having you refine your policy? This is accepted, voted on, approved county policy of Portage County.
All that was made up at the last meeting here. That wasn't policy.
No, that's what's right in front of you.
Carl, if you would, I'd like to have Director Josie speak to this.
So based on what you're doing tonight, and yes, the 2020 handbook was adopted by Finance Committee. So the discussion that you're having this evening, one of the things that we could potentially do here, based on the input and the feedback, is the Finance Committee could have a conversation about the feedback from this evening's materials and then choose to amend the handbook or not amend the handbook, at which then it would be before the public in an open meeting and discussed in that forum as a course of where to go from this evening, but without kind of having this conversation. I can put together anything and bring it to the committee, but it might not be what you're engaged in, and then it's my opinion. So based on the input from this evening, I would see potentially us taking back the input or the feedback on where things lie, and then we could incorporate or review the existing handbook for revision or improvements or enhancements. Does that help?
No question. So it could perhaps be that the 6 top ones are, so it's listed in priority, rather than right now, the criteria has no priority listing. This might assist a priority process.
Correct. So I mean, it would just further refine how we're doing it today, because obviously how we're doing it today has some flaws. But that would be, so, anything that you're doing tonight, I understand the position of you're not adopting anything this evening. You're having conversation and you're kind of limiting categories of input. But to formally amend the handbook, it would have to go before a committee and be adopted by a committee. This conversation doesn't amend the handbook. And the version, just to clarify that, the handbook was around when I started. It's been amended multiple times, but just because it says 2020, we didn't adopt, we didn't start a handbook in 2020. There was one when I started in 2009. So it existed. It's just been revised and updated and modified over time. We did have a major revision during Executive Dreyer's term, but other than that, we've always had something.
Okay, so the Finance Committee would have to adopt kind of the ranking order that we're coming up with, or at least the criteria, and then you can come back with another meeting. Or are you saying we're going to just do this and then we're going to start ranking projects without the input of the Finance Committee?
No, I'm saying that any changes would need to be adopted by Finance Committee in a meeting with revisions, but this is a way to provide that input.
The benefit that they have of adopting this is that they recognize how many approve or what things are more favorable by the full board. And that, it sounds like, is what has been the issue, is it gets to the full board and it dissolves because there's not enough, momentum behind it, votes behind it. I think what we're doing is we're trying to give direction by the committee of the whole to recommend a direction to the finance committee, whether they take that or not, but it's it's not like a smoke and mirrors. I mean, we're doing this is a public meeting, they can attend, they can see what's happening. There's nothing that's changing in your county policy by tonight's meeting.
Supervisor Honnold.
Yeah, I'd like to respond to the issue about whether or not we're taking action, and I didn't vote any action there, but what I did vote was my opinion, and that's what I was elected to do. I was elected to try to represent my voters and the best interests of the entire county. All this does is it says that if one of my constituents says, well, why did you decide to do this and not that? I can say we went through a process where 25 board members met, discussed, ranked, and agreed that for the benefit of Portage County residents, these are the top 4 or 5 directions that we want to go. We're not saying the others aren't important, but I believe this is why we were elected. And these are our opinions. I did not take action, but it will help guide our actions in the future. Thank you.
Supervisor Ware.
I just wanted to make a quick statement that I appreciate this process. I recognized after the last meeting that this is an opportunity for each supervisor to be heard, as well as an opportunity for us to get as close as possible to consensus, knowing that consensus would never be possible with 25 individuals representing 70,000 people in our county. But I do appreciate this process, and I think that we'll all be able to walk away feeling like, even if we didn't get what we wanted out of the process, we had an opportunity to speak up.
Thank you. Supervisor Marusi.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I also want to echo some of these sentiments where I appreciate that we're being provided an opportunity to actually be visionary in this moment. Over my tenure being here, just 7 years, I've never seen us take this approach. I've never been provided this opportunity other than perhaps in some committee meetings. And I think what we're trying to do here as a team, as Team Portage County, is to generate this open consensus about what our priorities actually are. I think we've done a really good job of laying that out here, and we should be really proud of that as a committee of the whole, as a county board, because I don't feel like we've ever been here before. There's one inkling of that when we had our kumbaya moment last term, when we said, yeah, we might be able to get behind this, right? And it felt really good. And I'm feeling like people are agreeing to disagree respectfully and cordially, and we're moving forward to get to a place that we've been struggling to get to for over 2 decades. We have an opportunity here to really get some ownership about where we want to go as a county, how we're going to get there, and what our priorities are to make it happen. And I'm seeing it between people who would normally not agree. I'm watching where you're placing your dots. You're agreeing. We all know we can agree that we can do this together as Team Portage County. Keep partisanship out of it, keep our big ideas out of it, and actually push forward and be visionary. So I'm super proud to see this actually happening tonight. And Mike, I respect your trepidation. I really do. But I think you're participating in the most amazing way I've ever seen right now. So please just keep going with it, because this is good for us.
I have no problem with the process. I like it.
Yeah.
I promoted that with Chair, that I think this is a great idea. I just think we got to fine tune our notice saying possible action. And this is some kind of action. We're setting the course
in the
So we're
preliminary
not-
stages here, so.
I would counter that by saying we actually are not taking action, Mike. The Finance Committee can take action by either accepting this and amending the handbook or rejecting it and not amending the handbook. That's up to the Finance Committee. As a board, we've given the Finance Committee the authority to do that. Supervisor Dodge?
I think it was a very good exercise. But what it tells me is that the people that wrote this were the visionaries, because the top 6 are the top 6 in this document, and the bottom 6 are the bottom 6 in this document. So what we did was just kind of verify that what they did years ago still stands. Public safety, all of those things. So I think it was a great exercise, and we didn't do anything, basically, today.
But we own it now.
Yeah.
We agree that those are the,
Any other comments? Supervisor Jankowski.
I have a little question on our ranking. We knocked out mandated by law and previously funded. Let me give you a couple examples. Mandated by law, the state statutes state we have to have courts, we have to have jail, we have to have a building for our operations. That's very hard. We still have to move that up somewhere in that scale. The next one, previously funded. Take a look at our law enforcement communications. That was done in 3 phases. There was telephone, there was communications, and there were towers. You knock one of those 3 out of there, and none of it functions. So we got to be very careful how we do that.
Point taken. I would, and I could defer to Carl here, but I would suggest that we haven't knocked any out. We're basically setting up some suggestions on where the board should go or guardrails for how we should consider a project. So we haven't eliminated anything.
But we're ranking it less, and it is a high-rated situation, the mandated by statutes. And it's also, if it was previously funded, if we started a project, we went through year 1, year 2, and we don't do the year 3 on it, we just stop it, the project we've wasted money and time. So we have to be careful.
Supervisor Marissi, then Supervisor Olkey.
I just think that that's why we do have exceptions to the rule, right? These are guidelines and guardrails. And if we need to have towers built because it's been previously funded to have greater public safety, then that pushes into the, improves public safety, right? It takes it to that next level. I don't think we're setting hard and fast rules, but we're just setting up these guidelines to push us in the right direction. And then if we decide to change course and make an exception to these suggestions, we can do that. That's part of our visionary leadership.
I think we all have to understand that's what's happening, because that can happen, and it can happen very easily.
Oh, I agree with you.
I'm just dittoing now because I think that becomes the visionary aspect of what we're charged to do. So when we're doing a project, and your example is a very fine example, but I think we would have that vision to keep those doors open, knowing that this is a project that's contingent upon future growth. A project such as you used as an example.
Supervisor Schwartz.
I appreciate that this is a unconventional method that we probably haven't used on the county board before, but I think it's really useful to help unify us in at least our goals and objectives. And I don't think the rankings are exactly the top 6, so I think it was useful to re-rank based on the current elected officials, based on what we believe in our opinions, as Supervisor Hunnell said. But I do have to agree a little bit with Supervisor Splinter that if we're, first a question, are we going to put these rankings to the finance committee as a recommendation?
I think that's the logical next step.
Okay, so then
is
that part would be an action. So is that something we should save for the next meeting as an actionable item?
Yeah, we cannot do it in this meeting. We cannot take action.
Okay, all right, I'm good then. Thank you.
If there's no further comments, I'll turn it back over to you, Carl.
I was just going to add that debt capacity question is also a part of this. And so I don't think we really are ready to say this is what the county board has decided until that fully is exercised or discussed. So I think that's our intention, is that it would be, it's a terrible mic, it would be the next process, the next meeting, whenever that is scheduled.
All right.
Yeah.
Take it away.
Okay, so that's what I have for today. What I will recommend is that we take this, we, maybe play around a little bit with a potential ranking, weight system for this, but it'll follow the logic of how these were voted for. And then we will be having a follow-up meeting in which we'll also be talking about some of the impacts of what is $50 million of debt cost, what is $100 million of debt cost to your residents. And that will hopefully help to make that decision on the total debt capacity as a part of that policy decision. And then the idea is these recommendations get forwarded to the Finance Committee to make the recommendation of an approval or into an amendment to the capital improvement plan program. Any questions for me or anything that I can help answer?
If not, I would just like to thank the board. These are actually fairly difficult discussions, and I think the board has done well. I appreciate all the comments that were made tonight. We really are creating guardrails for how we make decisions in the county. And again, it's not that they didn't exist before. As Jenny said, there's been a game plan, if you will, in the capital improvement plan for decades. We just haven't utilized it recently. And I think this is a good reminder that it exists, and also that we all now have a little bit of skin in the game as the current board. So thank you all. Carl, I'd like to thank you for this evening. Next meeting date is September 17th at 5 p.m. I would take a motion to adjourn. Motion by Randazzo, seconded by Yetter. We stand adjourned. Thank you.
A video of this meeting is available for viewing on the city's website, stevenspoint.com/videos.